They told the limping nurse to stay back until 4 Marine helicopters landed demanding. Angel 6, the emergency room went silent when the call came through. 4 Marine helicopters were inbound, carrying critically wounded soldiers from a training accident gone horribly wrong. The hospital administrator's voice crackled over the intercom, calling all available trauma staff to the landing pad. But when Sarah Mitchell grabbed her medical bag and headed for the door, her supervisor stopped her with a firm hand on her shoulder. "Not you, Sarah," he said, his eyes dropping to her pronounced limp. "We need people who can move fast today." Sarah's face flushed as younger nurses rushed past her. She'd been hearing variations of that same message for 3 years ever since the car accident that shattered her leg and nearly ended her nursing career. What none of them knew was that somewhere in the sky, 4 helicopter pilots had explicit orders to find one person and one person only, Angel 6. If you love stories that remind us why kindness and dedication matter, you're in the right place. Please subscribe to Heartfelt Moments, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling us about a time someone's kindness changed your life. Your support helps us share these powerful true stories with the world. Now let's get back to Sarah's story, because what happened next would change everything. Sarah Mitchell hadn't always walked with a limp. 3 years earlier, she'd been driving home from a double shift when a drunk driver ran a red light. The impact crushed her left leg in 14 places. Doctors said she'd never walk normally again, and they strongly suggested she find a new career. But Sarah had wanted to be a nurse since she was 7 years old, watching healthcare workers save her little brother's life. So she endured 2 years of agonizing physical therapy, learned to manage chronic pain, and fought her way back to the ER floor. But being back at work didn't mean being truly welcomed back. Some colleagues whispered when she struggled to keep pace during emergencies. Others offered sympathetic smiles that somehow felt worse than outright pity. And her supervisor, Mr. Harrison, had developed a habit of assigning her to desk duties whenever things got intense. "For your own good," he'd say. Sarah smiled through it all. But inside, she felt invisible, reduced to her injury rather than recognized for her skill. That morning, as she stood in the hallway watching her colleagues sprint toward the landing pad, something inside her broke. She turned toward the supply closet, blinking back tears when she heard the distinctive thump of helicopter rotors growing louder. And then, a voice over the radio that made her blood run cold. "We need Angel 6. Repeat, we are requesting Angel 6 by name. We have Marine Corps personnel with critical injuries who are asking for Angel 6. The dispatcher sounded confused. "Can you clarify?" "We don't have any staff by that designation." "Negative." The pilot's voice came back, strained and urgent. "Angel 6 is Nurse Sarah Mitchell. We were told she works at this facility. Our wounded are requesting her specifically." Sarah's supervisor appeared in the doorway, his expression stunned. "Sarah, they're asking for you. By name." He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "How do they know you?" Sarah's mind raced back to a deployment she'd almost forgotten about. 7 years ago, before her accident, she'd volunteered for a month-long rotation at a forward operating base in Afghanistan. The assignment had been brutal: long hours, limited supplies, and an endless stream of wounded Marines. She'd worked until her hands shook and her voice went hoarse, staying beside patients through the night, holding their hands when the pain was unbearable, writing letters home for those who couldn't lift a pan. The Marines had started calling her Angel 6, 6 being military slang for a unit, commander and angel for obvious reasons. She'd laughed it off at the time, insisting she was just doing her job. But they'd been serious. So serious, apparently, that 7 years later, wounded Marines were still asking for her by name. "I need to go," Sarah said quietly, already moving toward the door. Her supervisor stepped aside. "Sarah, yes, of course. Go." She limped as fast as she could toward the landing pad, her bad leg screaming in protest. By the time she reached the tarmac, all 4 helicopters had landed. Marines were being rushed out on stretchers, and then she saw him, Staff Sergeant Marcus Davis, A young man she'd treated 7 years ago for shrapnel wounds. He'd been 19 then, terrified and crying for his mother. She'd sat with him for hours, talking him through the pain, promising him he'd make it home. Now he was older, a sergeant's stripes on his torn uniform, being loaded onto a gurney. But when he saw Sarah, his eyes widened. "Angel 6, he whispered. "Guys, that's her. That's Angel 6. The word spread like wildfire. Wounded Marines on stretchers turned their heads. One raised a trembling hand in salute. Another smiled through his pain. "We told them we wanted you, ma'am," he said. "We all remember the stories. Angel 6 takes care of Marines." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, but her hands were already steady, already checking vitals, already doing what she'd been born to do. Her limp didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except these brave men who'd remembered her kindness from years ago and had asked for her when they needed help most. For the next 6 hours, Sarah worked alongside her colleagues, treating blood injuries, stabilizing fractures, holding hands and offering comfort. She barely noticed the pain in her leg. When the last Marine was stabilized and moved to intensive care, she finally allowed herself to sit down. Mr. Harrison approached, looking sheepish. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. I've been so focused on what you can't do that I forgot to see what you can do. What you've always done. These Marines flew halfway across the country asking for you by name because you showed them kindness when they were their most vulnerable. That's not something you can teach, and it's not something that requires 2 good legs." Sarah smiled, exhausted but genuinely happy. "Thank you," she said simply. One of the helicopter pilots approached before leaving. "Ma'am, I don't know what you did for these guys, but half of them have your story memorized. They tell it to new recruits. You're a legend." He saluted her, and Sarah, overcome, saluted back. The truth is, Sarah had just done what nurses do. She'd shown up, done her job with compassion, and treated every patient like they mattered. She hadn't known it would ripple forward through years and miles, creating a legacy that 4 helicopters would fly to honor. Kindness isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, consistent, and easily overlooked, but it's never forgotten by those who receive it. Sarah's limp didn't define her. Her heart did, and that's a lesson worth remembering. Our limitations don't limit our ability to change lives. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer is simply showing up and caring deeply. Be someone's Angel 6 today. You never know when your kindness will come back to save you.